As Clyde said, I am the chaplain at Purgatory, or Durango Mountain Resort. I work with not just the association, which is the Mesa Verde Baptist Association, but also with Alpine Resort Ministries. Alpine Resort Ministries is kind of the overall resort ministries through the Colorado Baptist. And that is one of my positions. I'm kind of one of those people who always has to be doing something. Let me explain what I mean by that. I am a substitute teacher. I'm a church planter. I coach sports at the school. I know you couldn't tell this by looking at me, but I promise for 10 years I coached high school and college sports. Cheerleading. Promise at the University of Memphis. So I was a cheerleading coach for many years. Coached gymnastics and things like that. Last year I coached middle school basketball at Ignacio. I also coached the high school cheerleading team at Ignacio and also help out with that. Also helping out this last year and the next coming up here for their competitions and things like that. I coach 3-year-old soccer. I'm on probably about 2 or 3 boards in Ignacio. I still don't have enough to do. Not only that, I also recently volunteered to be the associational coordinator for all of the association here for the Mesa Verde Baptist. And so I'm just always adding things to what I can do and kind of don't have a lot of time, but I make time for anything that I feel that is important. I want to thank you guys for letting me come in and speak today. Because as the Underground, we are a house church network. And what that means is, instead of having a building or instead of having a service where I stand up and speak, we have more of a conversation-led ministry that meets in houses. And also could possibly be meet in restaurants. And God forbid, we might also meet at a bar every now and then. Not that we're going to sit down and drink with them, but just because we feel like that's where people be. So that's kind of our ministry in our church. We've been out here. My wife and I moved out here a little over 3 years ago. We have a 3-year-old son who was born just after we got out here. His name's Liam. And then we have a 1-year-old daughter whose name is Paisley, and she's a lot of fun, but she's also a lot of fussy. But that is about me. Like I said, I just want to thank you guys for letting me come out today and speak to you guys. I do things a little different. I know when you look at me, you thought that does not look like, especially a Southern Baptist pastor. It's okay. I promise. You see, there's this verse when Paul's writing his first letter to the Corinthians. He writes a few verses, and it says, "To the Jew I became a Jew, and to the Gentile I became as a Gentile." And he said, "But I have become all things to all people, so that by all means I might save some." And that is what the calling of my life is. That's the calling of our church. As I said, I'm I work at Purgatory as the chaplain. I'm also a raft guide on the Animus. And so the way that we took that message after I moved here, much to my wife's chagrin, is this right here. I had to become a dirty hippie to reach the dirty hippies. So the long hair, the beard, everything else. But the truth is, they've accepted us into who I am. And looked at us in the last couple of years, really changed and said, well, now we see you not just as one of us, but we see you as a leader. And it's really a prayer answered, because it's funny to listen to them say, yeah, we would never go to church, but we'll go to church with Beau. And I'm like, wait, say that again? So I'm confused. But I want to talk to you guys today about a book in the Old Testament. We're going to be, if you have your Bibles, you can open up. It's going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes. It's actually one of my favorite books in the Bible. I love to preach from it. I love to read it. I love to talk about it. We're going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And let me say this. As I said, I kind of, I can't stand still. I'm going to be moving around because that's who I am. I'm moving around a little bit more now. I know the winter I always gain weight, and I probably lost 15 pounds in the last 2 weeks. And so I'm always fluctuating. But I want to talk about this. What we're going to talk about today is called the journey, and it's this journey in life that we're all on. Some of us are a little further on than the journey than others. Some of us are just beginning on the journey through life. Now me, whenever I think of a journey, I always think of something that's going to be a little bit more, how could you say it? I'm a little more adventurous than some people. I found out because I gained and lose weight real quick that I have a little bit of high blood pressure, and we're working on getting that down. But the things that I do gives my wife high blood pressure. Yeah, that's the stuff I like to do. I'm an adventurous person. If it's not a class 5 raft trip, it's not worth it, right? If it's not dangerous, I'm not going to do it. That's kind of who I am. I'm just love those things, and that's the type of person that God made me. Well, in the book of Ecclesiastes, as I said, we'll be in chapter 12. Very simply, I want to just give you a little bit of a history. Solomon wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. And I want to differentiate that book and the other 2 books that Solomon wrote. Solomon wrote the Song of Solomon when he was a younger guy. He wrote the book of Proverbs probably around middle age. And then he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes probably when he was an older guy, looking back over his life and saying, this is the lessons that I've learned of being the wisest man at the time to ever live. Now the second wisest man, because Jesus was the wisest man that ever lived, right? So being one of the wisest men to ever live, he's writing this book. And if you would start to read through Ecclesiastes, you would think that, man, he's depressed. Now you open it up, and depending on which version you're reading, he'll say, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Or vanities. Everything is vanities. And the point of that is, many times in our lives, we feel that way. I know I do. I know sometimes that I get up and I'm like, now having to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go work out before I go to work, and I'm like, well, what is the point of this? This is pointless to me. And he goes over and he talks about a lot of things. He says money's meaningless. Wisdom's meaningless. And really, he's looking at the world in 2 different ways. He's seeing the difference, and he's looking at the world, and he says, there's a lot of gray in this life. But later on, as he goes through the book of Ecclesiastes, he starts to see the difference. And he starts to differentiate and says, now I'm starting to see things in black and white. Things that are good and things that are bad. And that's where we are today. We're going to be talking about the journey of life. Now, I had to bring this out because it's just so fitting. As a matter of fact, this right here, if you can tell, is a hiking bag. I call it my minute bag because I can put it together in just a minute or so, or a few minutes, depending on what I'm going to do. It's something that I have ready that I can use in case I need it. And don't worry, we're going to go through this bag here in just a little bit. But it really is a thing. I don't know if you guys have ever heard or thought about in the old days, when you're looking back at the war, the colonies, they had what they called Minutemen. It was people who get ready in a minute. This is kind of the bag that I use in that same respect. If somebody calls me to do something adventurous, that's what I'm going for. See what I can put on it. So I have all kinds of fun things that I can throw on this bag depending on what I want to do. So we're going to leave that bag alone for just a minute. But we'll come back to it, don't worry. If you have your Bibles open to Ecclesiastes 12, we're going to start, and I'm going to read through this whole passage, and then we're going to come back and kind of unwind to it. And it's Ecclesiastes chapter 12, starting with verse 9. It says, besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge. weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings, and they are given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books, there is no end. And much study is a weariness of the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, with every secret thing, whether good or evil. And so, as we go and we look through the words today of Solomon as he writes, we want to look and see what he's talking about. And Solomon is talking about kind of what I said the title of the sermon was, which is called The Journey. Solomon's talking about a journey through life here. And as he's coming to the end of his life, he says, okay, now let's look at these things and let's figure out what the most important things in life are. And so, I want to kind of go through this bag just a little bit. I know everybody's intrigued if I have a bag in here, right? So we're going to go through it and try not to hurt anybody with what we can find in it, because there are several things. We're talking really about the